There's 3528 on the Grand Canyon National Park.
Yes, it is.
I thank the chair, and I would like to discuss all four amendments briefly. The first is the prohibition of amendments prohibition of earmarks in years in which there's a deficit. I've been pleased and somewhat surprised over the past week to hear about the renewed bipartisan interest in banning earmarks. I'm thankful for the attention, and I welcome the House Democratic leadership to fight against earmarks. According to last Thursday's Washington Post, I quote, facing an election year backlash over runaway spending and ethics scandals, House Democrats moved Wednesday to ban earmarks for private companies, sparking a war between the parties over which would embrace the most dramatic steps to change the way business is done in Washington. I was pleased to see the Speaker of the House and the Chairman of the House Appropriations Committee have recognized earmarks for what they are. They're a corrupting influence that should not be tolerated in these times of fiscal crisis. I applaud my Republican colleagues in the House and Senate, especially Senator Coburn and DeMint, who have called for a year-long moratorium on all earmarks. I fully support and join them in those efforts, but I think we need to do more. We need a complete ban on earmarks until our budget is balanced and we've eliminated our massive deficit. And this amendment promises to do just that. And I encourage my colleagues to join me in this effort. It's what the American people want. I have an obligation to give it to them. And I'm pleased to be joined by my good Indiana Senator By. The next amendment that I'd like to discuss very quickly is that the fee could be used to construct bike storage facilities at airports. As many know, the passenger facility fee is assessed on every ticket for any flight. Currently, this fee is $4.50 per flight, and during these very difficult economic times for most Americans, the bill from the House raises this fee to $7 and indexes it to inflation. It's frustrating, but more frustrating is that taxes and fees make up as much as 25% of every passenger's airline ticket. And I think that most airline passengers would agree with me that they'd rather see more improvements to ensure faster travel times and safer departure and arrivals. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported earlier this year on January 14, 2010, that $1.5 million of passengers' facility fees were used for a, quote, function art project of glass panels laminated with patterns of tree bark. Sounds beautiful, but I know most Americans want these excessive fees and charges to be used effectively and for the goal that Congress intended, to improve safety and performance. On the issue of the amendment concerning to move the next generation air traffic control forward, this amendment would require the FAA to report back to Congress in 90 days with proposals for innovative financing mechanisms to further the deployment and implementation of a modernized air traffic control system known as NextGen. Specifically, the report requires these innovative financing proposals to not increase our federal deficit and consider public-private partnerships. As the distinguished chairman of the committee knows also well, modernizing our outdated air traffic control system will positively impact all Americans by decreasing airport delays, improving the flow of commerce, and advancing our nation's air quality by reducing aircraft carbon emissions. Every day, Americans sit on a runway and miss meetings, children's soccer games, family dinners, and other important events due to air traffic delays that could have been avoided if our nation had a modernized air traffic control system. Thousands of goods are delayed for delivery each year due to air traffic delays, which results in more than $40 billion of costs each year that are passed on to consumers, according to the Joint Economic Committee. The Government Accountability Office estimates that 1 in every 4 flights in the United States of America is delayed. The airlines have called our air traffic control system, quote, an outdated World War II radar system. The FAA's next generation air traffic transportation system, NextGen, will transform the current ground-based radar air traffic control system to one that uses precision satellites, digital, network communications, and an integrated weather system. Moving from a ground-based to a satellite-based system will enable more flights to occupy the same airspace, meaning that the on-time performance improvements would be a reality with triple the aircraft capacity, according to the airlines. However, the administration and Congress have not provided adequate funding toward air traffic control modernization and instead continue to fund billions of dollars of earmarks. The FAA estimates that it will cost up to $42 billion to implement a modern air traffic control system. Congress appropriated $188 million for air traffic modernization in 2008 and $638 million in 2009, then another $358 million in the fiscal year 2010 Department of Transportation Appropriations bill. However, that same bill dedicated $1.7 billion on transportation earmarks. We've got to stop spending billions of dollars and instead cut its spending, or at least spend taxpayers' dollars on worthy projects. And again, I would like to thank the chairman of the committee for his efforts over many years on FAA modernization. There's no doubt that the airlines are right when they describe our air traffic control system as, quote, an outdated World War II radar system. It's really a shame that all these years we have had attempts that failed and wastes of billions of dollars in our efforts to modernize the air traffic control system, and we have failed. But we've got to redouble our efforts, and as we expect the economy to recover, there will be more aircraft flying in crowded airspace. There will be a more dangerous situation unless we modernize our air traffic control system. The final amendment that I have is to provide standards for determining whether the substantial restoration of the natural quiet and experience of the Grand Canyon National Park has been achieved, and to clarify regulatory authority with respect to commercial air tours operating over the park. I see my colleagues waiting, and I won't take a lot of time on this amendment, but I'd like to mention to my colleagues that it was approximately 25 years ago that I proposed legislation to restore natural quiet and the great experience of the Grand Canyon National Park. All these years have intervened, and there still has not been regulations written to implement that legislation. All of us share this. We have been able to sit down with the help of the Majority Leader's office, Senator Inson's office, and Senator Kyle's office, and others, to try to make progress on this important issue. I think we have brought all parties together. I think there is consensus, and so I'm hoping that we will be able to adopt this amendment without further disagreement. It's important that we restore the natural quiet and experience of the Grand Canyon National Park. At the same time, it's very important also that people from all over the world have the opportunity to enjoy one of the great and magnificent experiences that any person can have, and that is to view the Grand Canyon from the air as well as from the ground. I think this legislation represents that careful balance. I thank Senator Reid and Senator Ensign and Senator for their efforts in crafting this legislation. It's time we acted, and I appreciate the indulgence of my colleagues. And Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor.
President.
Senator from West Virginia.
I would say